Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the NEWSTART solution to 8 challenging health conditions. We are so glad that you have come this morning to this platform. It's not too late to invite a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, but we are so glad to have you this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning, bright and early. We're so glad to connect with you to this NEWSTART solution to 8 challenging health conditions. Before we go any further, we want to not only invite you and welcome you, but we want to welcome God in our midst. So we're going to bow with a quick word of prayer and ask that the Lord will be with us to bless us as we seek Him today and to seek how to better take care of ourselves. Father in heaven, we give you thanks and praises for every good and perfect gift comes from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variableness nor shadow of turning, for great is your faithfulness. Thank you for this platform. We ask that you will bless Dr. Gibbons as he shares solutions to health challenges. And we ask, oh God, that you'll give us a willing mind and heart to put into practice these things so that we can become better and healthy and ready to serve our fellow man. So bless us today, we pray, and we thank you in advance for what you're going to do. In Christ's name, amen. Well, again, we welcome you to the NEWSTART solution to 8 challenging health conditions. As you know, it will be featured every Sunday morning at the same time on this platform. And we will say more about any questions that you may have. We want to be able to facilitate you for the next 8 weeks. What a commitment that we're making today. We want to thank God for your time. We want to make sure that we guard your time. And so we're going to get right into the introduction of our speaker today. Our presenter today is none other than Dr. Leonard Gibbons. Dr. Leonard Gibbons is a lifestyle intervention specialist. He is a graduate of the Loma Linda University, Oakwood University, Australian College of Phytotherapy, Benning School of Massage, and Uchi Pines Institute. He has an education, folks. And so we want to thank God for his background educationally. He formerly served there at the as a wellness coordinator for the Bermuda Hospitals Board and for the health promotion coordinator for the Bermuda Government Department of Health. Dr. Gibbons is currently the Health Ministries Director for the Bermuda Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and he also works at Bermuda Wellness and Outreach Center as a lifestyle intervention specialist. Dr. Gibbons focuses on lifestyle medicine while working with patients and clients in conjunction with their primary care physicians. He is known for providing wellness education and lifestyle change programs for churches, businesses, and organizations and the general public, always using his expertise in public health nutrition, dietetics, herbal medicine, alcohol and drug counseling, massage therapy, hydrotherapy, public speaking, and lifestyle medicine, using God's 8 natural remedies as a framework for health and healing. Dr. Gibbons is married to his lovely wife, Dr. Rosamond Williams Gibbons, a career educator in the Bermuda government school system, and a graduate in global international health from Loma Linda University. They both attended Oakwood College at the same time for 6 and 7 years prior to meeting each other. The Gibbonses are blessed with 2 children, Ryan and Lindsay, now young adults pursuing their passions of choice, after accompanying their parents during years of volunteering community work. Apart from work and family, Dr. Leonard Gibbons enjoys reading, hiking, skating, and making things with his hands. So we are so glad that Dr. Gibbons has volunteered his time today, because this program is actually a free weekly session where we can come and benefit from the information and the learning and the education and the science that God has blessed with Dr. Gibbons being in our midst. So without further ado, we turn this over to our presenter today, Dr. Leonard Gibbons.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about this opportunity of being with you today. I'm excited about this course. It reminds me of when I was in school. And believe you me, I think it represents a teaching and a learning experience, and I trust that you will find it enlightening and helpful and encouraging you along your way towards health and wellness. Before we get into our topic today, the NEWSTART solution to COVID-19, I want to look at a couple of things, a little housekeeping in terms of how this program will go forward. First of all, there is a quiz that takes place every week. The first quiz, however, starts next week. So the materials you receive through emails, at the last page of your materials, you will see a true and false quiz. So that's what you want to, through this week, you want to complete that quiz and have it ready. When we start next week, we're going to go over the quiz. And so you just mark whether you had it right or wrong and have your total numbers. We're going to provide for you a master sheet where you can put all of your scores. And at the end of the program, you're going to email that or get that back to us. What that will do, that will help us to know who actually finished the course, and those individuals will receive a certificate of completion as a part of the course, how many hours it took, so that if you are a health professional, you would like to submit hours, you can use that certificate to submit hours. Other than that, you can display it, that you completed this lifestyle enhancement program. Okay, a second item is questions and answers. Now, you can submit questions online, whichever platform you are using right now, and those questions will be answered the following week. So next week, we will answer the questions that came up regarding COVID-19, as well as, of course, you will do your first quiz. Okay, so that's a little bit on the background of this year. Now, there are two reasons that I think are important to be a part of this program. Number one, for your own health and well-being, that you may have a life, that you may have it more abundantly. And if you're not healthy, you cannot truly have the most abundant life that you can possibly have. And so what we're going to be sharing is principles to live by. And if you apply those principles, you will reap the benefits, the health benefits. So I want you to encourage you not only to listen, to take notes, to participate in the quiz and the question and answers. What I want you to do is actually to make application yourself. So you can even share, what has happened as a result of you putting into practice the NEWSTART solutions. Now, NEWSTART is actually an acronym. And so each letter in the word stands for a principle of health that we will be talking about. And I will talk about that more as we go along. So first of all, it's to help yourself. Obviously, you're not the only one. And we want you to use this to not only to help yourself, but to bless others, to share what you have learned so that you can bless others. We want to encourage you again to invite others. We have a 3-week window, so individuals can join and be a part of that. So encourage friends, co-workers, people who have health issues that we will be talking about: obesity, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, stress, memory decline with aging. So all of these lifestyle diseases, believe it or not, a lot of them have more to do with how people live than anything else. So these are things that we're going to be, taking a look at and providing some powerful solutions. And I want you to encourage others to join. as well. So let's get in now. What usually happens, in fact, it happens all the time when you start out at a new course, there is a syllabus. There are, of course, you have your materials, but there are resources. And I'm going to talk about the resources that we are using for this entire course. And I'm going to give an overview of the philosophy as to why we're looking at this approach. After I do that, then I'm going to apply those principles to the different health issues. And today we're going to look at COVID-19. So the first resource area for me, because of my background and my belief system, is actually a biblical framework for healing. Now, why I choose a biblical framework? Because from my belief system, I believe that God created us. And if God created us, he knows best how to keep us well and how to get well if we're unwell. And the Bible presents to me this manual, so to speak, which speaks to health. And so we're going to look at it from that perspective in terms of those 8 principles of health. Now, in Exodus 15, verse 26, we find a promise. And the promise says simply this: if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obey his commandments, keep all his decrees. And when I think of all of these, I'm talking about the principles of health. Then I will not make you to suffer any of the diseases I have sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So the Egyptians were considered people who were not a part of God's plan. These were those that followed their own way. And in fact, when we look at the diseases of Egypt, they died from the same things that people die from today, everywhere from heart disease to diabetes to arthritis, you name it. Everything we're talking about, diseases that affect our immune system and our pressure, you name it. We don't have time, and we're not going to go into those diseases. Actually, we covered that in another course we've done. But the important thing to remember here is that there are principles, and what God promised to us is this: if you follow the principles, you will experience the benefit. You will be healthy. And I am the one that provides the healing. But there is a part for us to play. And that part is to apply. And if we apply the principles, then God's promise to bring about healing. And so that's what we're going to look at as we go along. Now, there was another statement that I thought was important, was in Nehemiah 9, verse 21, and talking about the time that God's people were in the wilderness. And it says that you provided for them in the desert for 40 years, and they had everything they needed. Their clothes did not wear out, and their feet didn't swell. So we're going to be talking about principles that give us health and help us to live life vibrantly. So this is the background of that framework. So this is the first piece or the resource that we're using in this course. Now, all of those work under a principle of sowing and reaping. And this is a very powerful principle. The Bible says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Now, why am I saying this? Just imagine I gave you a bag of seeds, let's say strawberries, okay? Now, I gave you strawberries, seeds that we know are really good seeds. And I've talked to you about, this is the type of soil, this is how you should water it, this is how much sunlight it should get. Now, if you take those seeds and you follow those instructions, what will happen in months, a couple of months' time, right? Are you going to end up with potatoes or carrots or pumpkin? No, you're going to end up with strawberries. If you sow strawberries, you're going to reap strawberries. If you follow the principles, you will reap the results that those principles guarantee. You are where you are today, your level of health, whether you're overweight, whether you have hypertension, whether you have diabetes, whether you're losing memory, whatever health conditions you are experiencing now have more to do with what you have sown in your past than any other thing. It's all about sowing and reaping. Our health or lack of it has more to do with what we're sowing. And if we're been sowing things that result in poor health, we can change that whole scenario. If we change what we sow, we can change what we reap. So this is an important, powerful principle. And so the question is, what am I doing? Is it based on the principles that bring health? Or is it based on a lack of those principles so that what I'm reaping, the ill health, is a consequence of poor choices? Whether knowingly or unknowingly, we are today what we have sown in our past. So what we're going to talk about is principles that reap results. And let me give you a clear example of what I'm talking about. An individual came to me several months ago, and they had what was considered an incurable disease. They had it for years, and they were just going along, taking this pill or that pill. But they decided, it's got to be something else, or is there something else? So they decided to come and see me. So what did I do? Well, I looked at the principles that we're going to be talking about, NEWSTART. And based on what they said they had, I formulated a sowing experience that utilized these 8 principles. And I can tell you today, that which was said they would have for the rest of their lives is now gone. They are healthier than they have been in years. All they needed to do was apply the principles. If you apply the principles, the right seeds, your body will bring about the right fruit. Now, there's a caveat to this. Sometimes we have made certain choices for so long that they have created some really serious errors in how parts of the body function. And to give you an example of that, insulin is created by certain cells in your body, and those cells are related to controlling blood sugar. Now, if your habits have been such that those cells are destroyed within your pancreas, then you're going to have to take on some insulin, right? But if you haven't gotten to that place where your body is no longer has functioning beta cells, which have this insulin that help to control your blood sugar, there is something we can do. Now, there are also miracles, and sometimes God provides a miracle. We do all we can, and then He brings in this supernatural experience, and people have experienced that also. Against all odds, they have been cured. But we're going to be talking about all of these 8 principles, so keep that in mind. So when I start talking about different principles, and then what I want you to do is start applying those principles. All you've got to do is apply. And if you apply the principles of sowing and reaping, you will experience the benefit. And I've seen it in a week's time. People come in, and 1 week later, man, I feel so much better. I'm sleeping better. I've got this new sense of purpose. Life is meaningful, more so now. I've made these changes and I just feel better about myself. So I want to encourage you to sow the seeds. We're going to talk about the 8 principles of health. and you will reap the benefits in a positive way. So if you listen, if you do it, if you apply it, God will bring forth healing in your life. So what are those New Start principles? Number one is nutrition. It's actually found in Genesis chapter 1, verses 29 and 3, verse 18. Now, what we see there is basically God is talking about this original diet that God had given mankind, and it was plant-based. So the principle is this: eat largely of whole plant foods and add simple healing herbs when appropriate. Now, in your handout, I gave you an example of something that you could do to make application. And I want you to, wherever you are, as we start this 8 weeks, I want you to make some nutritional adjustments, okay? And that is important. So if you're not been consuming any very little plant foods, I want you to double your intake of plants. So if you're eating a cup worth of vegetables, I want you to double it. You know, if you're not eating any fruit, I want you to put 2 or 3 servings. So the whole idea is to get started on this principle of healing. Now, we're going to look at the science behind it. And the science is the application of these principles that scientists and researchers have done in today's modern world that actually support what the Bible says, right? Over 6,000 years ago, okay? So exercise is the second thing. Constant, moderate physical activity integrated into daily living. Exercise is an important principle. Every hour you move, you live an additional 2 hours. So this is a fantastic principle, and that's found in Genesis also. Water, 5 or more cups of water a day on the outside of the body, and water as hydrotherapy on the outside also. So hydrotherapy is the use of water in the treatment of disease. So water is a powerful healer, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that even today. The next is sunlight, 30 minutes or more of daily exposure to sunlight. Sunlight is powerful healer. The next is temperance. That's all about setting limits and boundaries. It's about being moderate in habits that are good and avoidance of harmful habits and practices. So it's not moderation in everything. Some things we should not even partake. So those things we need to avoid, and then we need to be moderate and balanced, set limits in those things that are good. And many of our issues we have is because we don't have limits or boundaries. You know, we want something, we like it, it feels good, so I'm gonna do it. I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not gonna do it, you know, and because we make decisions not based on principles, but on how we feel at the moment, many of us gotten into the type of health issues we are experiencing. All right, so temperance of balance. This is an important principle we want to follow. Fresh air, deep breathing, health promoting fresh air in a natural environment. That's like outside along the beach, along the tracks. There's something powerful about fresh air, and we're gonna explore that. Rest, 7 to 9 hours are optimal hours for sleeping. For rest, regeneration, body systems, including the mind, Genesis 2:21. And then the 8th principle is trust in divine power. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Now that's a biblical principle, and people who believe in God, that God is truly one who is desiring of them to have life and to have it more abundantly. The principle is to trust in him. And it's all about stressing less and trusting more. So where do we find our peace and our assurance that all will be well with our soul. So it's all about trust in God, and faith, faith in a position, faith in the principles. You know, if you don't believe something will work for you, chances are it's not going to work. But if you apply it and see what happens, see how your body responds. So these are the 8 principles. And we're going to be talking about them very specifically and how they relate to the 8 health problems we're going to be talking about as we go from time to time. Now, the first source is the Word of God. And the second source is actually the writings of Lng White. Now, Lng White, let me tell you a little bit about her. She was part of a small group of Seventh-day Adventists who, around the age of 17, started receiving visions from God. In 1848, she received her first vision on health. She had no formal education in health science or beyond the age of 12. Yet she was sharing information about health that was 100 years ahead of the science. Now, the question is, how does that happen? How does someone who has no education in health yet presented principles that we have figured out 100 years later through research and science to confirm that what she said was actually true? The book Counsels on Diet and Food was actually my beginnings. I am here today where I am, what I have learned, and how I have helped people today, people that are helped today because of what's in this book. That individual who came several months ago who had an incurable disease is well today because of something I shared in this book. So we're going to be talking about some of these principles because, in fact, those 8 principles that I delineated just a couple of minutes ago were actually written all together in one statement by this lady, Lng White. Now, the Bible says that in the last days that God will pour out his spirit and your sons and daughters will prophesy and your young man see vision, your old man will dream dreams. So, you know, from my background and our belief system, you know, we believe that God has used prophets in the past and she is a modern day prophet. Now, the question is whether you believe or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to share with you what the scientists have discovered today. And what you will see as we unpack, is that what she said is really what they are discovering is actually true. So my 3 sources are the Word of God, the writings of Lng White as they relate to health, and modern scientific discovery. So stay with us. We're going on an exciting journey, an exciting discovery. And you're going to be a part of this. And I want you to apply the principles and you will see it for yourself. And the truest way, the clearest way to ascertain whether something is true or false is to apply it yourself. So apply the principles and let us know how you are, how it's benefiting you or not. Now, this was back in 1827. She died in 1915, but she was not alone. 1898, actually a contemporary was about 15 when she was still alive. And this was Dr. Clive McClay. Now he's a researcher, right? And this is a statement he made regarding Mrs. White. In spite of the fact that the works of Mrs. White were written long before the advent of modern scientific nutrition, no better overall guide is available today. What a profound statement made by a well-respected professor, a university professor of nutrition. He was a biochemist, nutritionist, gerontologist, and a professor of animal husbandry. So when he looked at these 2 books, the Counsels on Diet and Food, the Ministry of Healing, he said, listen, man, well, wherever she got it from, what she is saying is true. Okay, so we're not talking about something that people made up, but we're talking about principles that have stood the test of time, that have brought back people from the grave, so to speak, has restored the health of people who are unwell. And so we're going to explore these principles in very practical ways. Now, let's start with one of the principles, statements made by Lng White. There are many ways of practicing the healing arts, but there is only one way that heaven approves. God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system through their powerful properties. So basically what she is saying is the simple agencies of nature, what we talked about, water and sunlight and air and all of these principles, these are the remedies. These are the agencies of nature, the use of herbs, the use of water, the exercise, the sunlight, the fresh air, trust in divine power. So there are many ways of practicing the healing arts, and there are a lot of different modalities that are used, and some of them will tax and debilitate the system. Actually, they provide more harm than benefit. And so what she is saying is what we need to focus on is the simple agencies of nature. And that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to apply them to the diseases that are affecting many people. And we're going to see how these simple remedies bring about miraculous transformations. So here is a statement that encapsulates those NEWSTART principles. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, that's temperance, so getting that balance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the what? These are the true remedies. Natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. We ask for a miracle and the Lord directs the mind to some simple remedy. Now, let me give you a real practical example. Patient comes in and they start talking. And they're talking about something that, I never addressed by itself. I knew the principles, but they're sharing and they're talking. And in my mind, I'm saying, Lord, what's the best, scenario of utilizing those principles? And a thought comes to my mind. This is probably a good thing to do. Try this with the water. Try this. I'm serious. This is sort of what's going on in my head. These thoughts come to me. It's not like I'm verbally hearing somebody, but it's just a sense. Try this, do that, do the other. It's just intuition, but I believe it's this spirit, the spirit of God. And so, I say, well, do this, do that, and do the other. Come back within 2 weeks. They come back within 2 weeks, and man, they're singing my praises. Thank you so much. I feel so much better. So the miracle happens as we apply the principles, and we have that abiding trust. Now that's my philosophy, and because it's my philosophy and how I approach it, this is how I'm sharing it with you. So I just want you to stay with me because we're gonna see the results, and you're gonna experience the results if you make the application. So I'm gonna give you the seeds, and the question is, are you applying the seeds? You apply the seeds, you plant the seeds, you apply it, and then you tell us how your life has changed as a result of it. And many have skeptics have come and said, this is, it's not gonna happen, this won't work. And I said, well, give it a try, put it to the test. And if it works, take it, adopt it. If it doesn't work, discard it. So I'm encouraging you to apply it and see what happens. I've seen it happen in countless lives. So I'm confident already that it will work. So natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about what? Supernatural results. And it is his will that we may have life and have it more abundant. Now, Lng White was not alone. There was Thomas Edison, who was an inventor. When we think of him, most of us think of the electric light bulbs. And he was a contemporary. This is what he said. The doctors of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. What an insightful fellow. However, we don't see a lot of this. In fact, I work with doctors, I work with medical doctors, and their chief approach is medicine. My chief approach is lifestyle medicine. It's herbs, it's diet, it's sleep, it's sunlight, it's coping with stress, it's water therapy, all of these natural things. I believe that they are, but he is saying that, it's the diet, it's the lifestyle. So inventors are people who have a keen sense of observation. They look at circumstances, they look at situations, and they try to figure out how can we do this better, and they look at things in nature and see how they do it, and they try to duplicate based on what they see in nature. And when you see people who are unwell, and you look at what's their lifestyle, then you see people who are well, and what's their lifestyle. And this power of observation and reasoning has a way of, us coming to some conclusions that maybe there's something in this after all. And then we put it to the test. And that's how the scientific process takes place, research and science. We have this idea, and we put it to the test. So he was there. Now, what about the drugs? Well, Counsels on Health is another book by Lng White, and this is what she says. Fresh air, exercise, pure water, clean, sweet premises are within the reach of all, but with little expense. But drugs are expensive, both in the outlay of means and the effects produced upon the system. Now, a lot of the drugs that were utilized during the time of Lng White, we know today they are very toxic. And in fact, people were better off not going to the doctor back then than going to the doctor. Most people who went actually did poorly. They ended up, worse off as a result of the way it was practiced. So here she was, talking about air and exercise and water and clean, sweet premises and trust. And the medical establishment was just giving people drugs, very strong and toxic drugs that they were giving them. So she was saying, listen, they're expensive. And the means, the money you put towards it and its impact on your body. Then she said this profound statement. She was sharing this actually with a physician. When you understand physiology, how the body functions, in its truest sense, your drug bills will be far much smaller. And finally, you will cease to deal out drugs at all. Talking to a doctor, listen, when you understand how the body works, you will use less and less drugs until finally you won't use them anymore because you understand the principles of how the body works. The physician, continuing, who depends on drug medication in his practice shows that he does not understand the delicate machinery of the human organ. Now, this is a profound statement. And I guess many doctors will be upset at this because that's the principal therapy that most allopathic doctors, this is their mode of practice. You dispense drugs. You may advise some nutrition, but most times there is a prescription. And so individuals come to me and, they're diabetic, they got meds for that. They're hypertensive, they've got meds for that, right? Their cholesterol is high, they've got meds for that. They, they're anxious, anxiety, they've got meds for that. If they're not sleeping well, they've got meds for that. So whole list of medications. And all of those conditions can be prevented, can be arrested. And depending on how far along people are in their lifestyle habits of these practices, the practices that bring forth a fruit of disease, will determine whether we can take them right back to the place where they have no disease whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to be talking about these amazing principles. Now, the question is, what about today? Is it any different today? Well, based on researchers looking at hospital situation, medical care is the third leading cause of death in America. Estimated annual death by medical care, adverse drug effects, non-errors, 106,000 patients in hospitals have died from the correct application of drug therapy. They prescribed it as they were supposed to prescribe it, yet they died. Hospital infections, 80,000 died. Other preventable errors in the hospital, 45,000. Unnecessary surgeries, 12,000. And medical errors, 7,000. Approximately 250,000 Americans die because of medical care. Now, this was presented in the JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, in July 26, the year 2000. More recent studies, probably about 10 years ago, are confirming the same thing. So even today, medical care, a heavy reliance on drug therapy is not the best focus. There are places for it, but it's not the centerpiece of care when we want people to be truly healthy. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, and let me give you an example of that. This was a study done in 2007, and it was looking at medical spending and treatment outcomes. They looked at patients that were in Miami and patients that were in Minneapolis. Now, let me read it. In Miami, patients had more procedures, more drugs, more surgery, more time spent in the hospital, that they were sicker and more likely to die than patients who were in Minneapolis. The cost of treatment in Miami was $15,000. In Minneapolis, per patient, it was $7,500. This is a Dartmouth study, 2007. So here you have a clear picture of what's happening. More procedures, more drugs, more time spent in the hospital, sicker, more likely to die. Less procedures, less drugs, less surgery, less time in hospital, and cheaper. People doing better. Why? Because health has more to do with how a person lives, how they eat, how they sleep, how they move, how they cope with stress, than a chemical that someone may take in. British Medical Journal, November 11, 2000. Drug and medical errors kill 1 in every 5 Australians. University College London, medical care is the third most frequent cause of deaths in Britain after cancer and heart disease, killing up to 40,000 people a year. So not only in America, across the world, we're seeing high levels of people who are dying as a result of a primary focus on medicine or drugs as a solution to their problems. Dr. John Abramson did some observations himself. He is a physician, Harvard Medical School chairman, consultant. He wrote a book, Overdosed America, in the year 2005. And it had everything to do with this Vioxx tragedy. Vioxx, this was a drug that was prescribed to lots of people. And let me just read the caption here. Mark, the drug company, manipulated its data saying it was better than what it was really was, or hiding the truth. And the FDA resulted in approval of Vioxx in 1999. It led to thousands of avoidable premature deaths and 100,000 heart attacks. The company made $11 billion from the drug over a 5-year period. The FDA failed to recall the drug earlier, and it resulted in 55,000 premature deaths from heart attacks and stroke. Can you imagine that? This was awful. Now, Merck agreed to pay out $4.85 billion to settle nearly 27,000 claims that the arthritic drug caused heart attacks and stroke. In total, they ended up paying out $8 billion for these criminal deeds. So here you have a drug company that's supposed to be looking out for us, actually hiding the truth. And, you know, lots of people lost their lives. So what we want to do here is to focus not on the place of drugs, but we're going to look at on the place of lifestyle medicines. Dr. Robert F. Allen, PhD, made this statement summarizing what he saw in medicine. And he says, our culture today is a poisoned well. Our culture does not encourage people to be healthy. Our medical care system has become a salvage operation, largely specializing in the management of the victims. We practice patch-up medicine. We spend billions for surgery, for coronary care units, for kidney dialysis machines, for radiation therapy, chemical treatment of cancer. We have looked at disease so long that we have become blinded and forgotten about health. I don't know about you, but I want us to focus on health. So this is the backdrop as to why we're looking at a NEWSTART solutions. We're not patching up, but we want to get to the root cause. We want to share with you the principles of health, the laws of health, on which your body governs, which it works well when we obey and follow, which it falls apart when we don't apply those principles of health. So how did we get here? I'm going to talk about this a little briefly. How did we get here? And then we're going to jump right into our topic today, NEWSTART and COVID-19. So how did we get here? How did we get to a place where our focus is so much on drugs and so less on lifestyle? Well, there was a fellow called Louis Pasteur. He was a French biologist. He was in the same era of Lng White. He believed that microorganisms or germs cause disease. We catch bacteria and colds and viruses. He believed that bacteria could not be found in healthy people, healthy body, that microbes flying through the air on dust particles were responsible for all possible disease. So we get rid of all bacteria, we will be healthy. This was his belief. Now, there were flaws in Pasteur's theory. Experiments were performed actually where they took animals and kept them completely germ-free. Their birth took place by cesarean section. They were locked in microbe-free cages and given sterile food. But after a few days, all of the animals were dead. Can you believe it? We kept you germ-free, but you all died. How is this? What was missing? Well, we have inside of our bodies a microbial community. Our microbiome, this is this internal family of microorganisms that live inside us in our gut, all through our bodies. More of them are in our gut than other parts of our bodies, but they are everywhere. No, they consist of trillions of microorganisms that inhabit the body. They outnumber human cells by 10 to 1. So there are more of them than there are of us, our cells. These microorganisms include bacteria and fungi and parasites and viruses. In a healthy person, these organisms coexist harmoniously, including low levels of harmful bacteria. Now, think about this. So you have within your body trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, the good ones, the bad ones, all together living in harmony. So the solution is not to get rid of all the bacteria, not to get rid of all of these things, but how to create a healthy balance internally, right? And a healthy balance towards what's going on around us. We're breathing in viruses and bacteria and all sorts of things all the time. When we were born, we got exposed to all of this through the breast milk, through the birth canal. You know, little kids, what do little kids do? First thing little kids do, they what? They put everything in their mouths. What are they doing? They're getting inoculated against the bacteria and whatever is in their living environment, so that the body will build up, have any resistance to the microbes that live in our environment. When we go to foreign places, what do they tell us? In certain places, don't drink the water, you know, make sure it's filtered or it's actually purified, you know, because we come down with you know, bugs. They take over because we are not exposed to them. So exposure is good. It helps the body build up resistance, helps the body to, oh, this is what this is. Let me make something so that if it comes back again, we can lock it up and get rid of it. All right, so there is a place for microbes and viruses and bacteria and fungi. In fact, there are health benefits. They stimulate the immune system. Think about it, the right balance of microbes. The healthy gut stimulates your immune system. They break down potential toxic food compounds. They synthesize, they make vitamins and amino acids or proteins. They provide key enzymes needed to form vitamin B12, which is only found in bacteria, not in plants or animals, and they help to digest our food. So microbes are our friends, the right microbes, the right combination. The bad combination, we create serious problems. So the solution is not to get rid of all of it, it's to understand how to create a healthy balance between what is really bad and that which is actually for our good. So around the same time, there was another French biologist, Antoine Beckham, if I pronounced that right. He believed that people don't catch germs that give them disease. Instead, disease-causing germs are actually opportunistic, thriving in people whose bodies are weakened or imbalanced internally. So if the body is weakened and imbalanced, then the microbes take over. If we keep the body balanced and healthy internally, it will prevent the germs from taking over. So what's more important from his perspective is not the presence of germs, but the strength of the human body. It's about building a fortress that is impregnable to the assaults of the germs in this external environment. So it's important to deal with germs, but from his perspective, the best way, the most best way is to build a fortress so that if it comes, so that we're exposed to it, our bodies will defeat it. He said, a healthy biological terrain, an internal environment, is immune to germ infection. So here are the two views. One, get rid of them. The other, make a strong, healthy body. What won out? Pasteur. So Antonio Bacchum, he was pushed to the background, but Pasteur, or Louis Pasteur, was raised to the front, and this is the beginning of pharmaceutical industry, and where the focus is more on pills and less on lifestyle, more on a chemical to fight a germ or to lower cholesterol or blood pressure, and less on building a healthy body terrain that can actually fight for us and keep us in balance. Well, let me talk a little bit about my journey, and then we're gonna jump right in. Because of what I learned from the writings of Lng White on health, I was impressed that I should start an education looking at nutrition, because she talked a lot about nutrition. So that was my start at Oakwood University. It was Oakwood College at that time. So I got a bachelor's degree in foods and nutrition. Well, I went on to another institute. It's called UT Pines. Now, UT Pines is a Seventh-day Adventist Living Lifestyle Center. This is their new one. When I went there, it was the old center, but this is the brand new state-of-the-art lifestyle center. And this is where people come to live for 2 weeks, 1 week, and even 3 weeks. And we radically changed their diet and lifestyle. And those principles of NEWSTART are what are practiced at this facility. And as you see on the left, there is the education component. And guests that come there, we call them guests, not patients. They learn how to cook well. They learn how to do natural remedies to keep them well. And in the middle is an example of a breakfast. You see all the fruit and all the, the natural whole plant foods that they provide there. And that's part of that NEWSTART principle. And on the right is a few of the students. They're getting a picture outside of a therapeutic whirlpool bath, where we raise the temperature to get the body systems fighting for us, using water to increase your body temperature, to increase circulation of white blood cells, which rid the body of harmful, pathogens or germs. All right, so I went there as a visit, first. And I was inspired and said, you know what, I'm gonna go back there, because this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's where I got my introduction. And believe you me, I saw miracles. People would come, and what I did, because I was part of I worked as a lifestyle counselor. So one of my responsibilities was giving an overview of the program, or introduction to the new guests, people who have come for the next 3 weeks. And so just imagine we're in this dining room area, and there's a whole lot of people sitting around. It reminds me of that experience in the Bible, where it talks about the pool of Bethesda and all these sick people waiting for the moving of the water, hoping that the angel will come down and heal them. And so people with all sorts of conditions, some of them looking depressed and looking, can you help me? You know what I mean? And 3 weeks later, totally different scenario. I mean, people hardly walking 5 miles. One person I worked with Mr. Blakeney. He was extremely overweight, and he was not too optimistic about life. His blood pressure was elevated, and he left a new man, lost significant weight off his medications. And so this was my introduction, and I said, this is what I wanted to do. Now, this is a certificate program, and I said, what do we have? Oh, I forgot about this picture. This is one of the treatments we did, and it's actually a steam cabinet. I'm sitting in this cabinet, and there's water in this canister under the sink. Well, it's not under the sink, it's like a little trough. and then the steam goes up in it, and this towel is wrapped around here so the heat doesn't burn me here. And I'm getting this heat inside the cabinet, and then they're applying this cool cloth to my head to keep my head cool, and a thermometer in my mouth to monitor how my temperature is moving. And there are two of my buddies, Kenneth, he's in Bermuda, and Gilles, he was from a French country, Gilles Pierre, and we were fellow lifestyle counselors, and we worked with the patients at Yuchi Pines. Well, I went on to Loma Linda University. That is the premier health institute for higher, nursing and all to do with healthcare, medicine, pharmacy, public health. That's one of our major centers. And there I did my doctorate in preventive care and public health, nutrition, alcohol and drug certification, and registered dietitians completed there. So that's a little background about me and how all this came together. So now the question is, some people may ask, okay, you believe that what was shared from this lady many years ago who was only educated up to age 12. These philosophies of health were shared, and they were shared with the Adventist community. And today, there have been studies conducted through National Geographic. And one of them looked for the longest living cultures around the world. They came up with what they call the blue zones, and there were 5. One was in Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California. That's sort of a centerpiece. That's where I went to school, where a large population of Adventists live, and a large number of them are centenarians. They live over the age of 100, and they have a high quality of life in advanced years. Icaria, Greece, Nicoya Peninsula, and Costa Rica. Now, these are cultures that live the longest. They live the longest, have the highest quality of health in advanced age. And the principles undergirding what the Adventist philosophy is what is practiced by large numbers of these people. And as a result of that, the science today demonstrates that we are the longest and healthiest living populations in the world. In America, we were the longest living people groups. And we are following those principles that were the NEWSTART. And that is the background as to why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. Not only does it have a biblical foundation, not only is it encapsulated in the writings of Lng White, but the modern scientific study substantiates the value and the importance of it. What are some of the consistent lifestyle factors in all the cultures? They have family. Family is important. No smoking, social engaged, constant moderate physical activity, plant-based diet, and they all consume legumes. So these are characteristics across all these population groups. This is an Okinawan centenarian, and healthy in advanced age, working in the garden. Now, just one other thing about the Adventist health study. Now, Adventist vegetarian men live 9.5 years longer, and women 6.1 years longer than California men and women, respectively. And that's California, Loma Linda. So the average Adventist in Loma Linda lives much longer than the average Californian, men and women. Now, a Seventh-day Adventist who is lean, that means they're not overweight, they exercise regularly, they eat a plant-based diet, live 10 to 12 years longer than an Adventist who's overweight, sedentary, eats meat, and seldom eats nuts. So nuts and plant-based diet, exercising, lean, living much longer. So this is the background of what we're going to be sharing as we look at these diseases, and we're going to zero in on those principles and how we apply them to these modern day diseases that people have. Now, it's important that we have a clear understanding of what disease is. Now, most people think of disease as the enemy, we need to get rid of it. And this is where the drug therapy approach gets its push. You know, so if this is the enemy, we need to provide something on the outside to kill it. Now, from Lng White in the book Ministry of Healing, she says this, and this is profound. This is, in all my education, I've never seen this anywhere else than in the book, The Ministry of Healing. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. So this is critical. So your body has self-healing mechanisms. Your body is always trying to heal itself, right? You get something caught in your throat, you cough. You follow me? So the body's trying to get rid of it. You have a cut, you know, you hold it, you got this pain, it bleeds, then it clots, it swells in the area. All of that is a part of the healing process. The body is trying to heal itself. So your body is trying to heal itself. Whatever you're experiencing is the body's way of trying to get your attention. The underlying factor is the violation of the laws of health or the principles of health. So interchangeably, we're using the two. So the NEWSTART principles violation leads to what we call disease. The signs and symptoms, right, are disease. The real problem is the violation of the principles of health. Diabetes is not the real issue. Lifestyle is the real issue. Diabetes is the label we give to the fire alarm that is telling us something needs to be fixed. The solution is not to cut off the fire alarm, right? Disease is a friend, a teaching moment, a fire alarm, a wake-up call, warning us that we are out of balance, the body is self-correcting, and may need our active support to create healing. Now, fire alarm goes off, it's the middle of the night, it's this piercing sound. What do? You get up and, man, all this noise, and rip it off the wall, throw away the batteries and go back to sleep? No, nobody in their right mind would do that. You welcome the sound, right? So what do? You look for smoke. You look for fire. Yes, that's what you look for. It's letting you know that something's out of balance. Disease is letting you know that something's out of balance. What we need to understand is, what is it trying to teach us? What's the lesson? And that brings us to COVID-19. What do we learn from this whole scenario that gives us an idea how we should tackle it in a natural, holistic framework? Okay, first of all, my first statement is this: COVID-19 is no match for a healthy immune system. Now, let that thinking sink in. Now, on the left side of this graphic, you have active cases. You have coronary-infected patients. You have mild cases. You have serious cases. So I want to look at mild cases, right? And what's the percentage? 99.3% of people that have COVID, according to the PCR test, 99.3% have mild or no symptoms and recover with no problem whatsoever. We're talking about a viral illness, right? So it's something that affects your immunity. So if 99.3% of people, based on this one graphic, right, have no problem fighting against this, then that tells me the immune system is amazing and it can what? It can wreak havoc against this. So the question is, what's with the 0.7%? What's wrong with them and how can we what? Address those factors that are compromising their body's ability to fight for them. All right, on the right side, you see discharge, 98%, closed cases, deaths, 2%, based on this set of statistics. So, 4,008,682. How many die a year for heart disease globally? This is, that's global, this is global. 17.9 million. So a lot more pass away from heart disease than have from COVID-19. But what we do know is that the immune system is a critical piece. So let's take a look at the immune system. Now, before that, this is another slide I got from, it's Dr. Governor Ron Santos. He's the governor in Florida. And I saw this release from CDC, estimated survival rate. 0 to 19, 99.997 survive. 20 to 49, 99.98, 50 to 69, 99.5, and 70 and older, 94.6%. So a large percentage of people survive. So we're going to talk about how we can enhance the body's immune system to fight for us. Yes, and that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about the immune system. So there are two parts. There's the innate immune system. That's the one we're born with. And then the adaptive one, the one we acquire as we're exposed to environments, right? Our kids eating stuff and putting all stuff in the mind. Then the body makes an adaptive response so it can kill this thing if it comes again. Now, the fast acting is what comes out first. It decreases with age, right? So we know that older people, right, are more likely to succumb to this, right? And this innate immune system, this fast acting coming out, destroying something, minute it shows up, this is decreases with age. Now, this part, the adaptive, increases with age. So the issue is not the adaptive because it's the innate. I mean, the adaptive takes a while. It could take 7 days to 14 days before it's up and running. So before it builds up this adaptive immunity that actually we know it can last for years. In fact, the 1918 flu, they measured people today who are in their 90s now, who are still alive, and they still have immunity against that virus way back. So when the body makes an antidote, that antidote is long lasting. This is good news. Now, so the innate first responders to all kinds of infections, they are out of balance in COVID-19. So something is wrong with the innate immune system. That's in that small percentage. So what can we do to do what? To build up this part of the immune system. So we're going to focus somewhat on that there as we go along. So now, one of the important cells we have that fights against viruses is natural killer cells. Okay, these are important. So this graphic says a whole lot of stuff here, right? Now, you see right in the middle, looks like an egg, NK cells. And then above that, you have activation of NK cells. You see that? And all I want you to look at is what's in the middle, and it's vitamin D3. Okay, keep that in mind. We're going to go back to that. But it activates natural killer cells. So now, natural killer cells are the most crucial antiviral player in the innate immune response. So this is a critical player. So anything that helps your natural killer cells work better is gonna what? Help you fight against any type of virus and anything that comes on. One of the things highlighted here is vitamin D3. It's not the only thing, and we're gonna look at some other things, some amazing things. And vitamin D3, the body makes it, right? From exposure to sunlight, the body makes vitamin D in the skin, right? So this is wonderful stuff, and we'll get to that as we go along. Now, they are significantly decreased natural killer cells in number and activity in patients with severe COVID-19. So here is a clear picture. When we look at the level of these natural killer cells in the blood of those who have severe COVID-19, their number and activity are depressed. So reasoning would tell us whatever we can do to do what? Increase the number and activity of these natural cells will decrease the likelihood that we would end up with severe COVID-19. Does that make sense? I think so. So you got your innate immune system, you got SARS, you got cells now. There are other cells, the monocytes and macrophages, and these are also white blood cells. So you got all types of soldiers fighting for you. You got the foot soldiers, you got tanks, you've got bombs, all different types of armory to fight for us. And these are other types, And I'm not going to go into detail, but the monocytes and the macrophages gobble up, okay? All can be overactive and result with what we call cytokine storm. And that's the place that happens when people have serious problems and they're in the hospital and they put them on a ventilator and they're very difficult breathing and they are not doing well. What is happening is the immune system is overreacting. The body is sort of like attacking itself. It's all out of balance. Okay, and we want things to get back in balance. So whatever causes excessive inflammation, poor response of these white blood cells create issues. Now, interleukin-6, don't worry about that, but it sort of turns on the switch, so all this inflammation and damage and fluid in the lungs, and you can't breathe, you don't get oxygen, don't get the delivery to those cells, and you die. That's what's happening. Now, this compound, this chemical promotes chronic inflammation. And where do we get it from? What's a major body fat is a major source of this. Now, so what we know is that people who are obese, who have a lot more weight than they should, are the individuals one of the highest risks. Higher weight, higher risk. And we're going to look at a research that confirms that. So overeating increases the immune response in a negative way, which causes the body to generate excessive inflammation. That's just overeating itself causes excessive, which may lead to a number of chronic eating. So overeating increases immune response. Overweight increases immune response. So both can lead to that. In SARS-CoV-2 infection, which is related to COVID-19, is associated with dysregulation of the inflammatory immune response, which in turn inhibits the development of protective immunity to the infection. So the body is out of control. It's no brakes are on, and inflammation is one of the key factors that creates this imbalance. So the question is, how can I dampen inflammation? If I can prevent inflammation, what can I do? I can keep my body in a regular place so it responds in a healthy way. So controlled fire warms us up, cooks food, good environment. Uncontrolled fire, right, burns the house down. That's what COVID-19 is. This is what's happening to the lung. It's being burnt down because of inflammation out of control. So we want to get in control. So to do that, we're going to look at what? NEWSTART: nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, trust in divine power, coping well with the stresses of life. This is what we're talking about, stress and coping. All right, that's encapsulated in this whole idea of trust in divine power. If I'm fearful, I'm stressful, I'm highly stressed, does that impact? Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples, and then we're going to zero down on some practical things that are associated. So you can jot down the side, make some notes and thoughts, any questions you have about COVID, even things that I don't cover here. You're welcome to put those questions in. You put them in, I'm going to answer them next week. Okay? All right, let's look. So natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. We ask for a miracle, the Lord directs the mind to some simple remedies. So let's delve in and let's look at some things. Okay, nutrition. All right, so there was this study. Healthcare workers from 6 countries, 568 came down with COVID, and the controls were 2,316. So there were different diets. There was a plant-based diet. There was a plant-based plus pescatarian, that's with fish. There was a baseline diet, basic meat-based, eating everything, a cross-section of all foods. And then low-carb diet. A low-carb diet tends to have, no starches, high in meat and fat, animal-based products which don't have carbs in them. Okay, that's the main focus. So you've got this group, and then you've got the plant-based. Now it doesn't mean that it was all plants. Maybe some dairy and some other things, but no meat, no fish, no beef, no turkey. You got me? Now, when we look at moderate to severe cases of COVID, those that were on the plant-based, their risk was 73% less than those that were not on this diet. The plant plus pescatarian, 59% lower rates of moderate to severe COVID. They control, for a number of factors. Now, this was not a control study in the sense that you put somebody on something, you follow them up. They reported their diets, and then we looked based on what they reported and looked at the outcome. So you see much lower rates of severe and moderate severe COVID based on a diet largely composed of plants. When you look at the risk of, severe and moderate COVID, those that were consuming the low carb diet, which is a diet around a lot, people use it for weight loss and all of that, no carbs, but lots of fat and high animal-based foods. Well, the likelihood of getting moderate or severe COVID was almost 4 times more in those that were on the high animal-based diet when compared with the plant-based diet. So just looking at it, nutrition-wise, looking at this one example, we see a clear benefit towards consuming more plants and less animal-based products. And we're going to look at some details as to why that may be in a few slides forward. Exercise, inactivity among COVID-19 patients and hospitalization. The risk of hospitalization was increased 126% in those that were inactive. And the likelihood of being admitted to ICU or intensive care was increased 73%, and risk of death due to COVID, 149% higher in those that were inactive. So brothers and sisters, well, you want to be active. You want to keep moving, because inactivity is a risk factor for hospitalization, serious COVID, and increased death rate. Eating more plants is an important factor of lowering the risk of moderate to severe COVID. Water. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about water, actually from another study, because I don't have any data specifically related to this COVID-19, but we probably could see a potential relationship based on what we've shared about the immune system and the immune cells and all of that. Hydrotherapy, which is the use of water in the treatment, improves microcirculation, so circulation in the small veins and arterioles throughout the body. Okay, so hydrotherapy improves microcirculation. Enzymatic activity, such as lysosomes, these are granulites and monocytes, that type of white blood cells, that kill curls and influenza and other viruses. So we know that when we increase the circulation, use water therapy to increase your circulation and your white blood cell activity, we'll talk a little bit about that, and actually increase the level of the activities of these white blood cells that kill colds, influenza, and other viruses. And of course, COVID-19 virus. Okay, lysosomes are found in tears, saliva, and mucous membranes. So when we're wearing masks, or face shields, it's sort of, and this is where we get this virus coming in through, our nasal passages or what have you. And here we have this first line defense of these white blood cells that are there to help fight against anything that comes into the body. So let's take a look. Way back in the 1980s, there was this Spanish flu pandemic. 500 million of the world population, 50 million they reported died. Intervention, isolation, hygiene, quarantine, disinfectants, limitations of public gathering, but it was not applied evenly. No vaccines or antibiotics were there at that time to treat secondary bacterial infections that can be associated with the influenza. So what happened? Well, there was a standard medical care in the 1918, and the Army Camp Hospital data we see there. Now let's look in the block highlight. 40% of the Army personnel developed pneumonia. Developing pneumonia died during this pandemic. Death rate, influenza, 6.7, 1.34. All Army camp personnel died from influenza. So we got a high percentage of those who had developed pneumonia and who died during this pandemic. And we're looking at people that were treated in this facility. Now, the Adventists also had a program there, and they were using their lifestyle centers, like what I started out, I talked about UT Pines, where I went to school. Well, we had lifestyle centers out, and that's an example of one of them way back then, one of those lifestyle centers. Now, in this particular study, this was at Huntington City Health Officers Report, they reported on this. And what they reported, more than 90 of 120 dorm students and faculty were diagnosed with influenza. Now, under the direction of Dr. H.E. Larson, good nursing care, they regulated their diet, their rest. They continued for 2 to 5 days after apparent recovery. So they had rest after that. No drugs. What they used was hydrotherapy, hot and cool to the chest, to the throat, to the abdomen. No cases of pneumonia, nobody died using water therapy in the form of hot, moist packs followed by cool. So this contrast of hot and cool, nobody died. Now, there were other facilities. You see an example there, patient who's lying down, and the clinician looks like he has something black on his hands, and that is actually like what we call a cool mitten friction. It's actually his hands are covered with a mitten. That was, you see the basin there, it had ice and water, and he wrinks it out, slaps it, and then after it's been on hot for about 3 minutes, he takes the hot oil, and then he does a cool rub over the entire area, dries it off, and puts another hot pack. So this contrast, hot and cool treatment is what we were talking about. So 10 different Adventist sanitariums. They treated over 1,000 patients. Now, 677 were outpatients. They went to and they told them what to do. And the mortality rate was 3.8. So 3.8 died who were under that treatment, who went home. Now, 446 were treated in the hospital facility, and only 1.3% of those treated passed away. Now, when we look worldwide, when we look at the average treatment, the mortality or the rate at which people died was from 10 to 20%. So we can see here an application of the water therapy and the diet and the rest and all of that in the context of home treatment or with in a lifestyle center, we see a significant improvement just looking at the impact of water. Now, this slide here, there is patients with low response of interferon. Now, interferon, just think of it as a good thing, right? It's released from white blood cells, right? After they're stimulated. Now, what we know is that patients with low levels of this chemical, right, that's released from white blood cells, have a poor likelihood, poor prognosis, and higher risk of death from the coronavirus infection. Now, most of this is released at a temperature of 1 or 2. So as your temperature increases, and in fact, we do that artificially. When I was at UG Pines, we actually gave people a fever treatment. We put them in a whirlpool tub and we measured their oral temperature. We kept their head cool. We controlled the water temperature. We took it up and then we brought it back down again. We finished with cool. We got them rested. So all of this is not something you should try to do by yourself. No, you want to make sure you have somebody who's competent and knows what they're doing. But the point I wanted to make here is as the core body temperature increases, interferon level increases, which increase the likelihood that people would do well. And we artificially can do that. Contrast band. Hot fermentations can increase the activity of white blood cells by 200 to 300%. Can you believe this? Now, this example here, you can see here that the cloth is in the water, right? And what we typically do in that case is we wring it out and we could roll it and we put it on a rack in a pot, and then we boil it until it's really hot. Now, of course, you take a steaming hot cloth and you apply it to someone that could burn them. So what we do, we put several layers, 2 to 3 layers of dry towel on the chest area, and then we use mittens like urban mitts, and we apply that over the area, and then we cover that with a sheet, cover that with a blanket, and then after 3 minutes, when it starts to cool down, we pull that off, we take that off, and then we apply the cool. We dry it off, we put back the dry, and then we put another heat. And we do 3 exchanges. So this hot and cool is a very powerful way of stimulating the immune system. And what it does, it stimulates your natural killer cells. Remember, we talked about that. The monocytes, right? These are other cells and lymphocytes, right? And the interleukin-6, all of this. So it's working for our good. Now, heat followed by cool improves innate immunity. So remember we were talking about the innate immunity, the first line defenders. Yes, they are improved when heat is followed by cool, significantly enough to reduce actual disease such as cold from viruses, severity of illness, and even pneumonia admitted to the hospital. Many studies have shown. So this contrast, hot, cool, in the chest area and up around here, effective for any type of viral infection in this area. Now, you can do something yourself, relatively safe. Go in the shower, turn it on. In this example, 3 minutes hot, followed by 1 minute cool. And that's a good stimulate. Now, what I've done is you can do 1 minute hot and like 15 seconds cool and do 3 exchanges, right? So 1 minute as hot as you can take, then go 15 seconds, then 3, then a minute, then 3, then 15 seconds, then a minute, then 15 seconds, and finish with cool. This will greatly stimulate your immune system. Now, your red blood cells, when you have these contrasts, hot and cool, they all come out of the woodwork and they're ready to fight for you. So this is something we can do. Now, sunlight is also very good. 20 to 30 minutes or more daily exposure between 11 and 3 p.m., depending on the darkness of the skin, for the absorption of vitamin D. That's the best time to absorb vitamin D. It modulates the innate and adaptive immune system, right? It increases your white blood cells, and you've got some there, including your natural killer cells, and activates your T cells. It reduces the risk of a cold by 50%. That's vitamin D. Looking at 90% or more of individuals with the virus will be inactivated by being exposure from 11 to 35 minutes of midday sunlight. In most US world cities during the summer, further virus will persist, however, infections for a day or more in the winter. So with the summer, you get this benefit. Now, of course, sunscreen, protecting from the damaging effect, but you want to develop the vitamin D, you need to get that exposure first. 10 minutes, 10, 20 minutes exposure, because if you put on the protective coat, you will not absorb the rub, the lotion, the cream, SPF 15, whatever. That will block your body's ability to make the vitamin D3. So get the exposure first. So sunlight is important because this is where you get the vitamin D. Vitamin D is effective for preventing and treating COVID. Inflammatory conditions in COVID-19 have been attributed to low levels of vitamin D. The lower the vitamin D, the greater the risk for serious implications. So this is amazing. Temperance, overweight. The more overweight people are, a higher levels of confirmed COVID-19. 31% in the obese, 55% in the obese, and 57% in the severe obese. So as your weight goes up, I'm not going to go through the graph, but basically what it's saying is, as it's going up, the graph going up, the risk of getting COVID increases with increased weight. And we talked about that. Fresh air, positive ions, and negative electrical charges that are present in the gases that form the air. The higher levels of positive ion is good quality. Positive ions, rather, not good, is associated with toxic health problems, and negative ions are associated with positive health outcomes. We don't have any specific studies on the air as say, but we do know that being outside definitely dilutes the virus. You're less likely because you have that circulating air. All right, so positively charged toxic air increases anxiety and suspicions and respiratory congestion, as we're looking at it with reference to here. And so the potential to increase risk by being in cramped areas with no circulation, respiratory congestion, stress. Negative decrease is the good thing. Decrease survival of bacteria and viruses in the air. So being outside is good. Increases the function of the lungs' protective layer, cilia. Tranquilizes and relaxes. So we want fresh air. Fresh air is going to be a benefit. Lowers body temperature, improves a sense of well-being. Rest has a benefit. Risk of severe infections increase with decreased sleep status by 6.7 times higher, peaking at 8.6 times higher for lack of sleep. So you don't get sleep, your risk of severe COVID is highest. So sleep is an important factor. Trust in divine power. We're looking at cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. The higher the levels of cortisol, the greater the stress. So it was associated with a 42% increase in the hazard or mortality. More likely to die because of higher levels of cortisol in people that had COVID-19. Now the Bible says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So if we have hope, we're not fearful, we're not overly concerned, then we won't produce the high levels of cortisol, which suppresses immune function, which increases mortality rates in COVID-19. So the framework, let's put it all together and let's look at a few more highlights as we go to this treatment. So you've got a basic overall. So first thing you do in the healing framework is determine what is the cause. What are the issues? What are the things that you are doing that is increasing the likelihood that you could come down with COVID, right? Are you inactive? Are you eating a lot of refined processed foods? Not enough plant foods, lots of animal-based foods. And we're going to talk about alcohol and smoking and fear and distress and lack of sleep and overwork and overeating, lack of exposure to sunlight, no time in nature, lots of sugar, pollution. What is it with you? What are the factors in your life? Identify those factors, right? Because those are the things you have to deal with. Number two, change the conditions. And the condition we're looking at is COVID-19, right? You don't have it, but there are factors: real elderly, obese, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, hypertension, cancer. All of these factors increase the likelihood because they impact on our immune system. All right? So the condition you want to change, right? You want to determine what are the underlying causes that are linked to the condition. That's two. Number three, you want to correct the wrong habits. So what are you going to do about your exercise, right? What are you going to do about your eating, right? Are you going to eat more colorful foods? Yeah, 2 to 3 meals a day. Are you going to drink 5 or more cups of water? I haven't been drinking water. Are you going to have a thankful attitude about what experiences in life? You know, all things work together to those that love God. Everything is a part of a plan. What is the good in what you're dealing with? Go to bed 2 hours before midnight, you know? Good plan. All right, so what are the habits you need to correct? Number 4, assist nature to bring about healing. Now, help nature to expel impurities and reestablish wellness. Okay, sometimes we've done all the other things and we need something else. All right, so we need to assist nature, right? You reestablish. You can use garlic, you use radon, you can use hydrotherapy, use turmeric, use ginger, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, ivermectin. Talk a little bit about that. Vaccines, not going to talk about that. Ventilators, all depends on where we are in the perspective, right? We start from the basic overall principles of health, and we go to the extra things to assist nature. If we need extra boost, that doesn't work, we keep going. But let's start with the foundation of lifestyle as our medicine. All right, so let's look at the immune system. Smoking, it impairs your natural killer cells. It increases inflammation. That's why you need to get rid of it. Alcohol, natural killer cells don't work well. Other cells don't work. Inflammation goes up. Low intakes of greens, your natural killer cells don't work well. Increase your level of greens. So you've got some things you need to introduce to your lifestyle. All right, what else impairs? Emotional distress, inflammation, your natural killer cells. Cast all your cares upon him. He cares for you. Problem solve. Address the issues of life. Unhealthy weight loss. Some people do some extreme weight loss programs, and it can lead to compromised immune function. Lots of refined fiber carbohydrates, lots of highly processed cakes and pies and cookies, right? All made with white flour, elevates C-reactive protein. Inflammation, look at it. Look at the inflammation. All coming out. Less than 6 hours of sleep. Yeah, natural killer cells and all of that. Trans fats. These are the fats that are in your typical goods you get at the store. And Crisco and shortening, those things. They all suppress the anti-inflammatory chemicals that we need, leading to inflammation, lack of exercise, inflammation, extreme exercise. Diets high in animal products result in inflammation, high in saturated fat, high in inflammation. That's why this whole thing is there. What else? Dairy products can affect your natural killer cells, increase inflammation. High in saturated fat. Saturated fat is inflammatory in nature. Arachidonic acid is a fatty acid that's in animal products. It increases inflammation. So you want to decrease all of these animal-based products to improve your immune function. Iron-rich animal protein foods result in inflammation. Arachidonic acid, which I was talking about, it's high inflammation. Beef, cheese, milk, pork, eggs, poultry, all have significant amounts of arachidonic inflammation, leading to poor outcomes. Obesity, inflammation. Eating irregular meals, inflammation. Eat at regular periods of time, not all over the place, snacking all. Indoor and outdoor pollution. So all of these are factors that we need to address to normalize the immune response, build a foundation. There are foods rich in anti-inflammatory vegetables, anti-inflammatory fruit. You want to make sure you get that. This is an interesting slide that looked at individual seniors who got vaccinated. It looked at the body's ability to make antibodies that protect us. And those that had more fruits and vegetables, they did better. So it even makes vaccination work better if you're taking vaccines. So all the plant-based foods give us the best option. Now, these are all things that can assist nature. Now, I don't have a lot of time left, but I'm going to shoot through these. You all should have your handouts, your materials that go through all of these, but these are all options that are helpful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about most of them. I'm not going to talk about the vaccines. I'm going to talk about all the other elements here. And so we're going to go through that a little quickly. First of all, vitamin D. Every cell of the body has receptors for vitamin D. 2,000 of our genes are controlled by vitamin D. It's the master key to our immune system. It makes natural killer cells work great. So you need it. So it talks about vitamin D levels cannot develop cytokine storm. And this was presented by Dr. Ryan Curl. If you have a vitamin D level of 50 nanograms per deciliter, you don't see people developing cytokine storm. And this was his review of the literature. 70% of the world population is vitamin D deficient. 82 to 88% nursing home patients, 83% of African Americans, 70% of Latinos, 70% of Native Americans, well, 47% of Caucasians. And who are the groups that have the highest level? Narcissism, African Americans, Latino, Native Americans. The highest population groups are the ones that have the lowest level of vitamin D. So vitamin D is a critical piece in all of this here. All right, 80% or more hospitalized patients, 96% of those in ICU have low vitamin D. So we want to get the vitamin D levels up early. It's dependent on where people live. We're not going to go through it. So higher states are higher levels, lower vitamin D, higher risk for COVID-19. Lower states, lower risk. This is how it goes. And what do we have? 87 studies that show this works. Isn't that amazing? 59 are sufficiency. That's studies that look at prior vitamin D status. So you have higher vitamin D status before what happens in terms of exposure. Okay, 53% show improvements in 21 treatment studies, 59% improvement in those that had higher levels before, and in treatment mortality, 16 studies where individuals, the death rate decreased by 63% in those that were given vitamin D. Isn't that amazing? Let's look at it. Early treatment, 78%. Lower mortality, death. Late treatment, 63%. Pre-exposure, 49%. That is taken as a placebo. You were taking it just before. So vitamin D is great. Vitamin C, what do we see there? It improves the function of our natural killer cells, the macrophages, the T cells. Neutrophils have higher levels of vitamin C in these white blood cells. However, if you take in high levels of sugar, sugar competes with vitamin C, so you can end up with more sugar in the cell versus vitamin C, so your natural neutrophils don't work that well, okay? Suppressing your immune function. 1 to 3 grams a day early, shorten ICU stay, intensive care units. This is just in 6 studies, not looking at COVID-19, but just the fact that individuals in the ICU who took between 1 and 3 grams of vitamin C early, their stay in the ICU decreased by 8.6%. Wonderful, good thing, right? One doctor, Dr. Weber, he, at the height of when it all started, he was giving patients vitamin C IV, and he saw a tremendous benefit for patients that were taking it. For example, 3 yellow peppers will give you 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. So that's a natural way to boost your vitamin C. All right, and this is just looking at some of the studies. Not as many studies in vitamin C. The greatest improvement we see here, 26% improvement in late treatment studies, vitamin C by itself. But when used in connection with other nutrients, the results are even better. So let's give you one example. QCB was actually a supplement that has quercetin, which is high in red onions, bromelain, which comes from the pineapple, and then vitamin C. They gave them 2 tablets a day, and 71 healthcare workers working with people who had COVID. All right, so they were exposed, high risk situation. 42 healthcare workers didn't have it. They had all the protective gear, but they didn't get any of the supplement. What happened after 113 days? Those that had the QCB group, 113 days, and those in the control group, 118. So that's a long period of time where people were exposed to patients who had COVID, and those that had the supplement, those that did not. And what was the result? This was amazing. Only 1 healthcare worker got tested positive versus 9 of the others. Altogether, 1% of 71 versus 21% of 42 individuals. So this is one example of a case control study where you see there is something we can do that can improve the likelihood, and healthcare workers, just by taking this combination, they will lower the risk of them catching the infection. And this is just an example of foods that are high in quercetin, what I talked about there. And as you can see there is virucidal properties against a range of viruses, including COVID virus. So quercetin is a good thing. Highest natural source, 2 cups of, you can see 2 cups of onions, not much people can eat that, but that's 100 milligrams. 1, 2.5, onion is 33. So onions, that's the highest thing. Kale, not a whole lot. Blueberries, not bad, you know. But if you want to get good boost, get a supplement or onions, and more onions. All right, zinc. This is powerful. Affects the immune cells, it's antiviral. The highest natural food source that I would recommend is hemp seed, 4 milligrams in a quarter cup, 2.5 in a quarter cup of pumpkin seed, and 1 cup of lentils or garbanzos gives you 2.4. And as you can see in this graph, to the left, you see depth. You see the level of zinc in the bloodstream, discharge, and control. So the more zinc an individual has in their body, measured in their blood, the less risk they have. There's another slide that gives the same idea. Higher levels in the serum, mild and moderate, and this is severe. Those that were severe have a much lower. And this is looking at COVID-19 positive patients, an average of 74, control 105. So you want a zinc level, serum level above 100. Okay, and the higher, the less likely that you will come down with COVID. Zinc is powerful. All right, and these are solid. Early treatment, 79%. A lower mortality rate by consuming zinc. Based on zinc levels in the blood, 50% less likely to die. 58. Late treatment, 36% less. So these are important things that zinc can do. So lower the mortality, lower the hospital stay. This was added with a drug, 2 drugs in this example. And what seems to happen is the drug actually enhances the absorption of the zinc. And the zinc is the real deal in terms of fighting against this virus. Curcumin from turmeric. Can you believe that? Early treatment, 86% decreased chance of serious outcomes. 50% late treatment, and all studies to combine 36%. That's just curcumin. That's most of you know turmeric, and you got turmeric powder. But this is curcumin, which is one of the active components. In this particular study, they received 525 milligrams and had a little piperine. This is an extract from pepper that increases the absorption. And what they found is early symptomatic recovery from fever, cold, soreness, breathlessness, less deterioration, oxygen saturation. All of this is good, 2 deaths compared to 11. They just added it to the standard treatment, and this is what happened. Just curcumin. Isn't that amazing? Melatonin, very good. Don't have time to go through all of that. Pistachios are the highest plant source. Ivermectin comes from the soil, a broth made from microorganisms, parasites, which used first for parasites and worms, was chemically modified to increase its activity and state and safety. And what do we know is highly potent antiviral, anti-inflammatory against COVID-19. Over 3.7, actually about 4 billion doses have been administered. It's been so good. Parasites left millions of people blind in sub-Saharan Africa. Africa is actually ivermectin has earned the title the wonder drug. It is amazing. Now, in terms of COVID, 74 to 85% improvement in early treatment or as a preventative. This is in a meta-analysis. Now, what is a meta-analysis? You know, there's a Bible statement that says, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. So multiple studies together give you better results. just looking at mortality rates, believe it or not, those that were early treatment, risk of death decreased 64%. As a preventative, death rate decreased by 96%. So your risk of dying, if you took ivermectin as a preventative, would lower it by 96%. So there is something we can utilize along with everything else we talked about that can give you that protection. All right. So this is good news. And I'm not going to go through all the studies here, but essentially what they're telling us is this is a powerful, effective meta-analysis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meta-analysis, different studies done by different researchers, all together showing that it is an amazing, effective treatment. This example here compares evidence-based use for other COVID-19 approvals. Okay, we're going to finish just a couple of minutes. Hold on to me. Now, the first three you can see here: budesonide, remdesivir, casirivimab. Now, these are all drugs that are approved, that are utilized in hospitals, okay, around the world. Now, how many studies have they used? One study in each. How many patients? You can see 1,799, 1,063, 799. Improvement, you see the improvement, 17%, 31%, 66%. Now, all of these three are approved for use. The one that's not approved is ivermectin. How many studies? 61 studies. How many patients? 22,425. Improvement, 70% on average, between 62 and 77. So here we have something that is not widely used, yet it presents a powerful tool that has the science to back it. So I want to encourage you to take advantage of all that we're sharing here. Now, this particular study was an interesting one, experimental group, and you can see here 4 experienced COVID and versus 25 in the control. Tell you what, I'm not gonna go that one. I just wanna go over this particular one because we don't have a lot of time. These were hospital healthcare workers, rather. In the ivermectin group, there was nearly 800 individuals, and none of them came down with COVID. So 99.9%, great. In the group that did not get COVID, 490, 58% of them came down with COVID. These are people within the healthcare setting, exposed, yet here we have it. This is simple, inexpensive, effective, very good, helping individuals. Lots of studies that show it works from Brazil to Paraguay, Peru. Don't have time to go with it. In Mexico, you can see where the ivermectin was added, where you see the line going there. Then you see the hospitalizations decreasing, and then you see the deaths decreasing after taking ivermectin. The reduce of the pressure on hospital system by 52 to 76%, depending on a number of factors. So here is an example. This is, you see the dark line on the bottom. This is the only state that was treated with our ivermectin in this Mexican study, and you see the death rates going up significantly, and all the others, but ivermectin way down on the level playing field. All right, so when we look at it, putting it all together, there are a number of organizations that have utilized a number of the things that I've been talking about, and one of them is the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. A number of health professionals that work on the first line in the United States. They have published together over 2,000 peer-reviewed papers. These individuals know what they're doing. They're working with patients and have been since this all started. And this is just a list of some of the professionals. And this is the protocol they have. And you have the handout. So you have this protocol listed, ivermectin and vitamin D and vitamin C, quercetin and zinc and melatonin. This is an preventive early treatment just to, so these are things along with what we've been talking about, the nutrition and the exercise and the water and the stress relief, all of these things we can do. They actually compared their results in the hospital using their protocol. 6% of hospitalized individuals died, compared with 23% in hospitals that did not use the protocol. One of the reasons they had that level of death is because a lot of the patients at this time they were not going to hospitals. They were waiting to the last minute because a lot of people died that went to the hospital. So they came at the very late stage. And that's why that 6% was experienced. Around the world, there are a lot of places that are using it, even more than probably what I have here, have adopted ivermectin, and there's a number of other things that are quite effective. So next steps. So what I want you to do is put the principles into action, what we've been talking about. The tide rises and falls, and our feelings rise and fall. So you want to make your decisions not based on how you feel at the moment, but on the principles of sowing and reaping that never fail. Now, at the end of actions promoted by feelings, in the moment, you usually gain nothing. However, at the end of actions prompted by principles, you reap a promise of lasting satisfaction. So I want to encourage you to put the principles that we have talked about that you have in your hands to work over the next week. And if you want to share an experience in your question and answer, just note experience and just type in, this is what happened for me. We may share some of those experiences as you apply these principles. So I encourage you to apply. And if I were to summarize everything, I would say, as the psalmist who put to action those principles, those laws, he said, bless the Lord, O my soul, forget not all his benefits, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who heals all your disease, who redeems thy life from destruction, crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercy, satisfies your mouth with good things, healthful food, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. So you have a long and vibrant life. And this is my hope for you, to apply the principle and experience the blessings. Let's end with prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time we've spent together talking about the principles of health and how these principles have amazing effects of transformation in the lives of those who apply them. Be it those that are here, may they apply, invite others to come next week and experience healing. In Jesus' name I pray, and for his sake, amen.